And I'm fucking livid that we are stuck in the timeline where Alex Jones is right. Kind of worse than a word.
Oh no! Oh, okay, no.
Why aren't the Amish afraid of COVID? Because they don't have TVs.
As I said, democracy is a system that reinforces authoritarian ideals.
I hope I don't get canceled. Talk to Steve.
Being a victim of a tragedy doesn't make you an expert in public policy.
Well, I mean, AOC is a drama queen and she's full of shit.
Remember, they lost the Afghan war 10 years ago.
You brought a freaking guillotine.
They said, you don't get to tell us no, we're the state health department, and I said, hell no.
It wasn't making Christianity better, it was making rock worse.
What the fuck do you have on your face, Olivia?
You want to make the world a better place? Have some babies and raise them to not be stupid.
I remember thinking, man, governments are not going to like this shit.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, activists, shitposters, and people of the internet, thank you for joining another episode of O'Donnell for Liberty. As always, I'm your host, Justin. And before we get started, just remember, whatever platform you're listening on, whether YouTube Live, Odyssey, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, or now available live on the air at lrn.fm, you can help grow the show by liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing with your friends. If you enjoy the content, you can join our production team by visiting patreon.com/O'Donnell for Liberty. Again, that's patreon.com/O'Donnell, 4 Liberty. If you want to keep in touch between shows, you can follow me on social media and join our community Discord channel where you can chat with other fans of the show at any time. All these links can be found in the description of the video or podcast you're listening to, as well as on o'donnellforliberty.com. So check the description for that link and make sure you check it out today. First and foremost, a shout out to our sponsor, SneckSwag.com, where you can get all your favorite Liberty merch, including some awesome new hoodies in the collection, just in time for colder weather to start creeping in. So make sure you head over to SneckSwag.com to pick up your merch today, just in time for your girlfriend to steal it. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the martyrdom of political politics, and we're going to take questions. So make sure you hit the like button, leave some comments, and tell us what you think in chat, and give a warm welcome to tonight's guest, the den mother of the Mises Caucus, the LMC secretary in exile, the pink flame of liberty herself, the one and only Caryn Ann Harlos.
Hey,
Caryn Ann,
how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for joining tonight. How are you?
I'm doing okay, all things considered. Considered.
Have you been doing better with your time off, at least?
Well, there's not much time off because I keep having to file stuff with the JC. So it's like I've been crazy busy anyway. So my hearing is Sunday. They might want some more documents after the hearing. I don't think so, though. So that part will be done, and we'll just be, as I said, now my watch begins.
Right. So if the bread and circuses of the NFL isn't enough to appease libertarians who don't like sports ball, they'll have a public hearing and crucifixion of a libertarian martyr with libertarian inside baseball and politics to entertain them on Sunday. What time is that going to be at?
Oh, God. Hold on. 2 Mountain.
2 Mountain. All right. I think I'll be awake by that time of the day.
I think that is. Hold on. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I got to double check because I'm not good with time zones. And I'm flying back from the East Coast that morning and then doing my JC hearing. Like, this is a jam-packed week. Like, I am so crazy busy. It's not even funny. So they had to move. They wanted it earlier and they had to move it up because I was going to be on a plane. They picked the one day I'd be on a plane.
That is absolutely wild. Unnecessary, if you ask me.
Yeah, so here we go. At least it's coming up.
So what are you like? You've taken the temperature of the room. I'm assuming you're a very meticulous person. You don't do anything half-assed. So like how many pages is the document of your appeal? Let's start there.
Oh, how many pages did I submit?
Yeah.
You really want to know? I mean, I'm not going to joke. About 1,500. About
1,500 pages. Now, like I write a lot.
Oh no, it's more than that. No, but maybe closer to 2,000. No, about 1,500. Let's just stick with that.
Do we think they even bothered to read it all?
Well, a lot of it is copies of emails of support I got because I submitted a compendium of the 1,000 member emails that the LNC got. absolutely furious at what they were doing. But of course, most of the LNC members, I'm going to tell you something that will not surprise you. Most of the LNC members never read the emails, because you know how most of them feel about member emails. It's like shoe fly. So Ken, and now Ken, I'm not blaming Ken for this. Ken, you know, Ken's like just super helpful, and he didn't know his advice would be used to ignore member emails. So Ken said, listen, if you're having trouble managing your email box, this is how you create a filter. So it will take all the member emails and put them into a separate folder so you can read them later. But you know damn well the rest of the LNC did not read them later. They put the filter on, so they conveniently went sight unseen into a folder. And the reason why I know they didn't read them, because one of them had a pretty serious request and complaint to the chair that this person's, and I don't want to say who they are because it will defeat the complaint, but in the folder of evidence, they used a comment from this person without disguising their identity and their comment. And this person got really upset and said, I don't want to be a part of this. Redact my name, please, you know, and filed a formal complaint. Never got a response from anyone but me. So that's how I know they didn't read them, because the alternative is they read a serious complaint like that from a member and ignored it after reading it. I prefer to think they ignored it because they didn't read it. So they got 1,000 emails. It's the most emails that has ever been received on any topic, including the number of emails we got complaining when they were thinking of not inviting Tom Woods. And you know how popular Tom Woods is. I got more emails than Tom Woods got. But that didn't matter.
I mean, the whole thing with Tom, the whole thing with Tom Woods, I think that paled in comparison to the outrage that we got. Like, I think when I was on the LNC, the most emails I ever got was about not inviting Ron Paul.
Yeah, but Tom got more than that. And to be fair, though, it could be because we made emailing the LNC very easy. We have that one touch button, so it doesn't take hardly any work to email the LNC. So to be fair, but still, I right now hold the record for the most number of emails. And as people go, yeah, but how many were sent posed to you? Less than 20. I have those too.
Is actually pretty wild. I mean, here's the crazy part. That actually makes sense to me, because to me, the people who are opposed to you aren't the people that are going to make their feelings known to the whole LNC. They're the people that are going to go around people's backs and try and cut deals and work things behind the scenes.
Like the LNC did. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
and historically, that's always been the divide in the party.
Yeah, there's so much unclean hands and bad faith in this whole thing that even if someone believed that I was just like the worst person and needed to be removed, you can't support it because of the bad faith. I mean, it's like, even if you thought somebody was super, super guilty, but the cops did all kinds of shady shit, that person still gets to go free. Everything that the LNC did with this whole thing, there isn't a step of it that I can't point to you to just shady, just backhanded type of stuff, completely unworthy of liberty. It's mind blowing to me, because these aren't even people. This isn't a new thing. This isn't new people just came in out of the blue. A lot of the people doing the shadiest shit are people that I had a lot of respect for in my time on the LNC. People who always were beacons of principle and transparency and countering shady shit. Like Aaron Adams and John Phillips and Whitney Bilyeu were all people who I had the utmost respect for up until this. They've changed. The LNC is where radicals go to die. I've said that plenty of times. It turns them into bureaucrats, and and Justin, what's going on now, the secret list, that's all they're talking on. Have you wondered why the LNC list is so quiet? Do you think they're just not talking? No. So you want to know what Colorado did, and still no response. I'm going to tell you some more shady shit, man. So Colorado filed a resolution, a formal complaint saying, we want a list of all the secret emails since the date that the secretary was suspended through now with the subject matter. Just like you're allowed to know for executive committee. You don't have to tell us what was said, but you need to tell us the subject matter so that we can determine as members if it qualifies for executive committee.
Right.
All of their discussions about my appeal have been in secret. They were fine accusing me in public. They were fine doing all that other shit in public. And now they're taking it secret. There is no justification under the bylaws for those discussions to be secret. This LNC is completely violating the bylaws. And did Colorado, now this wasn't a request from me. This was a request from the entire affiliate, the birthplace of the Libertarian Party. Our request has been ignored. They won't tell us.
Why does the secret list? Why did the secret list ever even need to exist in the first place? That's something I don't understand. We never had a secret list.
I know, and it was no problem. Like whenever there was anything confidential, like we handled it. Now they use this list because it's so convenient for everything. And I tried to get it deleted so many times, and you would have thought I ran over their dog and raped their mother, the way that they acted with me wanting to take away their little toy. But it is disgusting because also forget about my appeal, which I already know they're having secret discussions about. Delaware, there's only two options. One, they're not talking about it, or two, they're talking about it in secret, which without justification. And I don't know which option is worse. But I suspect they're talking about it in secret. And there is no bylaws justification for that because there's no legal implications for the LNC. The only way the LNC can protect things like that is if the National Party risks legal problems. There is no bylaws justification to have those Delaware conversations in secret. They're keeping all of this from the members.
So one of the things that strikes me is I don't think there's any justification for the LNC to be having a conversation about Delaware at all. It's not like New Hampshire where like they invoked the LNC as the authority for what they were doing, and LNC members took sides very early on and made things worse to the point where the LNC couldn't avoid getting involved. Delaware is. I have my opinions on how things have gone down there, but it's very much a Delaware fucking problem.
Well, up to a point. I would have agreed with you, but Susan opened the door to that to make herself look good. She posted that very self-serving email in the public list about how she's doing this and that, and fine, whatever, but she shouldn't have posted it all. So she opened the door to that. But I actually do think if the legitimate board in Delaware requests action, I do think there are some limited things the LNC can do. This isn't like Oregon where it was unclear and there was kind of shady dealing on both sides. This situation is completely, absolutely clear. There's no procedural question whatsoever who the board is, and it's the same board that was elected at convention. So like say if the Delaware board said, hey, we need one of those handy dandy letters like JBH tried to illegitimately give to Gilletta Jarvis, I think the LNC could give them a letter to get their social media accounts back. Because right now, Will McVeigh is running them as the Libertarian Party of Delaware. That is fraud. The LNC could assist the legitimate board in their legal action in Delaware, because they will need to take legal action and getting their bank account back, getting their name, and getting their social media accounts. The LNC can do that. The LNC can assure them that you're the ones we're going to be communicating with for things such as delegate allocations, because a convention is coming up. That's the limited things the LNC can do.
So the Delaware one, it's weird to me, and you are the queen of Robert's rules. You are the queen of bylaws, and I have always been I don't give a fuck about bylaws. If they're too long, I'm not going to bother looking at them. Like, how do we get shit done? I don't care what the rules are. We'll figure it out after the fact. But when I did
a 3-hour show on Delaware, going through all of Robert's and their bylaws.
Yeah, it on the surface, to like somebody who's not deep diving into the bylaws, just a glance at their articles of association, it looks like what they did was above board. Shady as hell.
No, it wasn't actually. That was my initial impression. So your initial impression's not a bad one, because that was my initial impression until I dug into it. And there's nothing they did right, actually. Actually, nothing they did along the way is correct. And I really, really did break it down in that 3-hour live stream, because my initial impression probably was that they were dirty, but they followed the rules. They just manipulated them. But no, they didn't even follow the rules. There isn't a damn thing they did right. So there is absolutely no question. The meeting was illegitimate. The notice was illegitimate. Like, everything they did was completely illegitimate, because they didn't comply with notice requirements for the meeting. When you have a special meeting, you need to give a certain number of days of notice, and only certain people can call a special meeting. Plus, the notice that they allegedly did of the bylaws didn't say notice or anything on it. It said amend bylaw 2 ? It was a discussion, not a notice. And the only people who can give notice are members of the body who can affect the change, not any Joe Blow member like that guy who posted it. So everything along the way is completely wrong, and it's not even questionable at all. So because of that, there are some limited things the LNC can do. The fact that the Region 5 chairs, and I'm only going to talk about this really limited because Region 5, it's really not my lane, but that they excluded the legitimate Delaware board from that Region 5 alternate vote, that was bad. That was because there's no question. But their vote wouldn't have made a difference, because they would have voted for Otto, and Otto won anyway. But they didn't know that when they excluded them.
Yeah, to me, this is just, lately with all of the drama and the pettiness and everything at every level of the LP, just the LNC shit show, the New Hampshire shit show, the Massachusetts shit show, and now the Delaware shit show. It's almost like a crazed, like, weird world we're living in, where libertarians are trying their damnedest to prove that voluntary association and voluntary governance doesn't work when you have any corrupt actors involved.
Well, here's the thing. What happened with Massachusetts and Delaware, I think, is a direct waterfall from what happened to me. I think it emboldened those sorts of actions, and we haven't seen the last of it. I do think perhaps we will see a slowdown on it if I'm reinstated, because that will kind of reverse that. But right now, they see that even though New Hampshire didn't succeed, they politically assassinated the person to make sure it didn't. So it's a very mixed signal, and it's kind of like wink, wink to all of these, really just corrupt coups. And words are violence. My feelings are hurt. You violated the NAP.
All right. I'm looking at it as, maybe the culture of the rules lawyering in the LP has gotten too far. And this is something I discussed with Spike a little bit. Like, maybe if we didn't have such complex bylaws, such complex rules, maybe if libertarians, no offense to Caryn Ann and the queen of Robert's rules over here, but maybe if libertarians cared a little bit less about parliamentary authority and less about bylaws and more about activism and doing things, that we wouldn't spend so much time fighting over who has keys to the Twitter account, because people would be too busy fighting the state.
See, I disagree, because the bylaws are what is going to save the legitimate board in Delaware. The rules is what is ultimately going to protect the good guys. And if the LNC wasn't so corrupt, the rules would have protected me. We're going to see if the JC takes care of it. Eventually, it'll all be righted in Reno. But in theory, the rules should have protected me. The rules should have given me due process. We'll see what happens. But the rules do eventually turn around to protect the people who are acting in good faith. It just might not happen right away. But with the rules in place, I don't think we need to obsess on them. I do think we need to worry more about activism rather than, this, like, LP power. What the hell is that? That's like decaffeinated coffee.
It's water that's lying about being in charge.
Yeah, there's no power. It's crazy how viciously people fight over being, like, the chair of 20 people. It's like, really? Just get out there and do stuff. So I think we can have both, but the rules are there to protect people. And when you don't have protections, bad actors are going to run amok.
So I think this all comes back to, and I wouldn't know this if Jeremy Kaufman didn't tell me about this, but Sayre's Law. And Sayre's Law states, in any dispute, the intensity of feeling and emotion is inversely proportional to the value of the issue at stake.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. And we see people just absolutely blowing up over petty disputes about who controls the Twitter accounts rather than who's actually going out to do things. Masha has a great comment. Masha's from Massachusetts. Our bylaws don't allow for due process, unfortunately, so the only option is takeover.
Well, that's
I actually had a parliamentary question for you on this one. I know we're going back. I just said rules are stupid. We shouldn't care. But I have a rules question about the Massachusetts bylaws. And I come back to this. It's like the LP Mises Caucus in Massachusetts.
I got to stop you one second, because Massachusetts decided not to adopt Roberts. And that's why she's not being protected.
It's not even Roberts. It goes beyond that to me. I think it's just like basic human decency. And like my county affiliate also does not use Roberts. We use Francis and Francis Democratic Rules of Order because
that does not have robust protections in it.
Well, I don't think we need robust protections for a county party that isn't trying to be a rules-based organization. It's just trying to be a organization through which people can coordinate their activism. Because here in New Hampshire, try to
fuck you over and you'll be singing a different story.
Well, because here in New Hampshire, we do things a little bit different on the county affiliate level. Our county affiliates actually go out and do activism instead of having monthly board meetings on Zoom to complain about how the masks, how the COVID keeps them inside. But Massachusetts has two sets of governing documents. They have a constitution and they have bylaws. When their constitution allows the state committee to amend the bylaws at any time they want with no notice, with no change whatsoever. And I've taken it. And when the Mises Caucus people in Massachusetts asked me for advice, because I used to be on the Massachusetts board before I moved to New Hampshire, I served on the Massachusetts board. We never treated the bylaws as what most people think are bylaws. We treated them more as like a policy manual to govern how the state board managed the day-to-day of the party. And the Constitution was something that we can only amend in convention. The Constitution has all the provisions for how to kick out a board member, remove somebody, or discipline somebody, and has very specific requirements for due process. They went ahead and just amended the bylaws to say they can kick out a member at any time with no notice and no due process.
The Constitution, if it has provisions for removal, is a superior authority to the bylaws.
It should be.
No, it is. I mean, that's just what it is. That's basic parliamentary law.
But I think when somebody questioned Ashley Shade on it, the state chair, she informed them that she wasn't familiar with the Constitution.
Well, that's a problem. And you guys don't have a judicial committee, so that's another problem too. So it makes so Ashley's really the final person until convention.
Right.
But not being familiar with the Constitution's not an acceptable answer from a party chair. And I love Ashley, but that's not an acceptable. And I will criticize friends, unlike somebody we were talking about earlier today. I love Ashley, but if she said she's not familiar with the Constitution, somebody who's not familiar with the party constitution has no business being a party chair. Friend or no friend.
So I don't know. It keeps coming back to me. I wish people would just get off their asses, off their computers, out of their mother's basements, and actually do activism instead of bitching. And in my time, like when I first joined the LP,
mean bitching's not activism?
No, it's not. It never is. When I first got involved in the Libertarian Party of Massachusetts, when Dan Fishman first recruited me to join the Libertarian Party of Massachusetts, it was because
somebody's like, but they need urgent information. So I am listening. I can multitask.
Yeah, it was because I was out doing activism, because I was out organizing Second Amendment rallies in Massachusetts, because I was out actually helping to work against the Attorney General's overreach in Massachusetts on gun laws. And when I joined the LP in Massachusetts, we had a focus on actually doing shit. And it seems like not just Massachusetts, but every other state party in the past 2 years has turned their focus into internal politics, internal power disputes, rather than doing shit. And when here in New Hampshire, the handful of people that we had actually doing shit, when they got elected to the state board, it was considered a takeover.
Oh. Well, let me tell you, in Colorado, we're doing a lot of shit. We've had a Mises takeover, and it's been nothing but great for Colorado.
It's been nothing but great for New Hampshire. We have a state party that's actually doing shit. We have a state party. We have a state board that decided they were going to do advertising, and all they could afford was a billboard. And when people tell you billboards are ineffective, let me tell you,
they're effective.
If you put a picture of Joe Biden wearing a Hitler stash on a billboard, it gets mainstream media coverage. So,
I can imagine. We're going to be doing a billboard soon here in Colorado. We just haven't decided what we're putting it on it yet. We're doing some anti-mandate stuff. I mean, the slogan I liked, I don't think's making the cut. They thought it was a bit too obscure, but mine was state rape is no better than date rape.
Phew. I can see why they wouldn't like that one.
I love it. It's perfect. It gets attention. What's the oof about it? You're from New Hampshire. You're going oof. You had legalized child labor. You had Hitler stash on Biden, and you're going oof to mine?
I feel like yours leaves a lot of room for open-ended interpretation and outrage, whereas like the Hitler stash on Biden will outrage people, definitely, but that's outrage we want to embrace.
Well, ours would have more info than just that. It would talk about the mandates and it would conclude with that. So it would be pretty focused. But I don't know which one we're going with. We might include that one. We're doing one of those electronic ones where we can rotate messages. So there's going to be multiple ones, but it's all going to be about the mandates. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, ours is just a really plain, simple one. It just says Biden's fascist vaccine mandates can still be stopped. Visit lpnh.org for information.
That's
and
good.
then the rest of it is it's Joe Biden putting on a mask, but the mask is the bottom half of Hitler's face. With the
I love it.
And everything. And let me pull this up.
Wait, do you still have the graphics?
I don't, but Nolan Pelletier could get them to you.
Yeah, can Colorado use them if I put them to our committee and they like it?
I don't see why not. I mean, but I don't believe in intellectual property, so I'm saying steal it.
Yeah. Well, I would. I don't either, but I believe in courtesy. So I think it's just courteous to ask. I don't believe in intellectual property either. By the way, Justin, in case you don't know, Colorado is the first state to pass an anti-intellectual property plank. It's in our platform.
Fantastic. I don't think you're the first. New Hampshire had it.
Yeah, we are. No, I think we're the first.
Because myself and Caleb Dyer wrote the platform a few years ago.
Okay, I'll double check, because if you guys are the first, I'll give you proper credit. We might be the second then.
Yeah,
but we do have it in our platform.
As far as like big global politics go, today New Hampshire did make news, and for those of you who are watching, New Hampshire made some absolutely fascinating news. Libertarian and Free State Project protesters spent the past month harassing the governor and harassing executive council members. For those of you who aren't from New Hampshire, we don't have a deputy governor, or we have a 5-headed executive council that is the deputy governor, and they can overrule the governor on things. And after a solid month of harassments and protests and informing the executive councilors that their home addresses were matters of public record, they voted 4-1 to deny and turn down federal funding to enforce the COVID mandate in New Hampshire.
Oh, wonderful, man. That's awesome.
Even Texas and Florida took the money, but New Hampshire said, nope, not with the strings attached.
That is awesome. But serious, no, ask Nolan. I want that Hitler thing now.
So I'm trying to find it. There was a picture of it. They might have nuked it off the internet because it was offensive. But it was glorious. And they did just start a new fundraising campaign on lpnh.org where you can set up a monthly recurring contribution to LPNH to help keep that billboard up until it's no longer relevant.
That's fantastic. I love it. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it looks like all the news articles about it have been stripped down. I can't find them anymore. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, so we're starting to do some billboard stuff in Colorado because we do think they're effective. And we're going to do it on all kinds of topics. But right now, it is the anti-mandate thing. And speaking of harassing bureaucrats, besides the LNC, because I do just live to troll the LNC right now, I've been harassing the hell out of Castle Rock. So that's been fun, keeping it local. And I am running for town council next year. So I'm doing a whole lot more other than just bitching about the LNC.
See, we need more people running for those local offices. That's what we really need. All right, here. Let me bring it up.
We're going to be petitioning here in Castle Rock as well to get our CV.
So this was the billboard.
Oh, that's great.
Simple,
Okay, I want it.
straightforward, gets the point across, pissed off enough people that our local TV ABC affiliate talked about it relentlessly on television.
Oh, please ask Nolan wouldn't you love to see that all over the country with a bunch of LPs?
It'd be fantastic.
Yeah, if you guys can get me that graphic, I will try to get this one as the one we approve. That's better than anything we came up with.
Yeah, and you know what the best part is? It didn't need a whole bunch of debate. It didn't need a fucking convention to approve it. There have been people who have disagreed with it, and you know what? I think Spike Cohen did say it best. If you disagree with that billboard, pull together $500 and put up your own fucking billboard.
So did you ask him, or do I need to ask him now?
Well, I can ask him later, or
okay,
I believe
him later then. Ask
Sean,
him, please.
Sean Brennan is in the chat, and he's on the executive committee with Nolan. So, Sean, you get that
Sean,
message
send
across.
me those graphics. Colorado wants to do that, I think. I'm going to push it in the communications committee. I think they'll go for it. It's all Mises here. I think they'll go for it.
Yeah, it's phenomenal messaging, and I just loved how simple it was.
Yeah, I don't like recreating the wheel. If somebody else did something brilliant, let's do it, man. And I like consistent messaging. I hope maybe if you guys let us do it, I hope some other affiliates pick it up. Wouldn't it be wonderful? That's a nationwide, like it gets on the news that multiple LPs are doing this. Think of how much better to troll the National Party, because you know they hate it. Like I haven't heard this yet, but you know, if this springs up everywhere, that like Laura Epke will be getting the hives over it. And
she'll lose her mind.
Yeah, and I live for that. I'm here for that.
Well, so while we're talking about national advertising, what the hell took the Libertarian Party so long to come up with a 1-minute spot that just falls flat?
Because they wouldn't. I put up the video on my channel in December where I was pushing them, and they were going, COVID's almost over, blah, blah, blah. You got to listen to it. It's one of those things that like aged like milk. Like, it is so bad. It's because they were cowards, to be frank. They were cowards. They didn't know what to do. They were scared of their own shadow. They were scared to get out in front of this thing. And what they did do, not the video, I'm not taking credit for that, because for obvious reasons. But the whole already against the next mandate thing was my fucking idea. And National will not give me credit for it, though. You notice that? That is just so nasty. Like, it would kill them to even give me fucking credit. But it was my idea, and most people know it because I was doing shit with that before National. And I gave all of that over to National. I turned over the website to them. I turned over all the graphics, all the ideas. Yeah.
So I'm a huge fan of a decentralized push. I'm a huge fan of like what we shouldn't be doing national advertising, because temperaments and expectations and like people's cultural acceptance of what we're going to advertise is going to vary so wildly. Like, the big problem with the LPNH tweets that started the whole controversy with the overreach in New Hampshire wasn't because people in New Hampshire were mad, because those tweets resonated and people in New Hampshire got it. It's because people in Nebraska, people in Missouri, people in Wyoming were upset and offended.
Business. And they need to mind their own damn business. And the David Valentis, who are no longer on the LNC, thank God, we're all sitting there getting all, ass puckered and offended.
Right. I want to see a more decentralized approach. And when the LNC said they were going to put up this national ad, they're going to put up this TV ad, we're going to fundraise for it, they're finally doing it. Donate. I'm like, I'm not giving a fucking dime until I see the ad, because I don't trust this LNC to put together an ad that's going to accurately and effectively go after the tyranny that we're faced with today.
It was meh.
It was so incredibly meh, and it took way too long to get out. Whereas when the LNC said we're going to do an ad, within 2 hours, Dave Smith, Spike Cohen, Tom Woods were like, we're in. We'll do an ad for you. And the LNC had no response for them. Within 48 hours, Dan Smots had a 2-minute and 20-second spot out that was absolutely incredible.
I haven't seen it. Where is it?
I'm going to pull it up if I can find it.
I have a concept for an ad, but they threw me off. They threw me off the LNC before I could give it to them. It would have been 1,000 times better. Like, I had a really, really great concept for an ad. It would have been great.
What was your concept?
I'm not saying it here yet because I might want to produce it, and I want to rather show it visually. But if I don't get someone to do it, I'll let you know in case somebody else wants to do it.
Like the best approach we have is decentralization, and I think like we need to stop expecting national to do shit. We need to start embracing the fact that people can localize and can do shit. I did see something on the national list where after the ad was published, somebody had suggested, like, well, if you're going to run it, but you're not going to run it in our area, can our state raise money to run it in our state?
Yeah, didn't they say yes?
I think there was a yes. I didn't follow up too much on it, but
yeah,
I'm like,
I think
okay.
The plan was to make it so that any state affiliate could slap their own branding on it and run it. But let me tell you honestly, I don't want to run that one in Colorado.
I don't want to run it in New Hampshire.
It's boring.
It bores the heck out of me. And
so I'm meeting actually with a video guy tomorrow because I want to try to create something for here, and we'll do the same thing. We'll let anyone use it and put their branding on it if they like ours better.
So I think I'm going to pull it up here. Share audio. This is the ad that Dan put together in less than 48 hours.
Pandemic of the unvaccinated. We must increase vaccinations among the unvaccinated with new vaccination requirements.
It's not going to work. We have other countries with much higher rates of vaccination, and they're seeing record surges of COVID because that's what viruses do.
Many of us are frustrated with the nearly 80 million Americans who are still not vaccinated.
Their freedom. I want my freedom to live.
Rest in peace, Wheezy. We are going to need the people to engage in age-old American tradition of simply saying, no, I'm not going to comply. What are you going to do about it?
It never stops. They want things to get worse because they want you to suffer so that they can grandstand on your suffering and push for even more control.
They have criminalized freedom. They've made getting sick illegal.
This isn't about COVID any more than the Patriot Act was about Al-Qaeda. It's about government asserting more control over your lives, your rights, your properties, and in this case, your bodily autonomy.
It has a lot of vaccinated people alarmed because of the power grab that's involved.
Enough is enough. We better change our tune and start resisting.
Government makes up less than 1% of the population. If even 5 or 10% of Americans simply refuse to comply, all of this goes away.
Absolutely, this is the hill worth dying on.
We haven't given the statutory authority to any agency to do this kind of thing.
There is no such thing as government. There's only what we are willing to comply to.
We're in a tough stretch, and it could last for a while.
That's what this has always been about. It's never about what they say it is. It's about controlling you. And it ends when we decide to end it.
This BS is going to stop.
It's time for us to wake up.
There's only one way to fight back against this, and it's mass non-compliance.
This is the most important thing to fight against.
You can help stop this. You are the power.
There's nothing, not a single thing we're unable to do if we do it together.
Yeah, it's way better than Nationals.
Incredibly better. And Dan's in the chat, and Dan's right. What a great ad. Anybody who's not following him on YouTube and Odyssey, the System is Down podcast, you have to search for it, the full thing. He's shadow banned because they hate him because he's saying the right things. So make sure you search the whole thing and subscribe on YouTube and Odyssey because he puts out content like that faster and more efficiently and more effectively than the LNC could ever do it.
How much did that cost you to do? That's what I want to know. I bet you it wasn't what LNC paid.
I bet you it wasn't 30 grand, but I bet you if the LNC gave Dan 30 grand, Dan would give them some of the best content they've ever had.
Yeah, we have so many talented people in the party. I don't know why we had to do that. Pay that. I don't get it.
Dan, I don't accept $0 because your time is worth something. But yeah, it didn't cost 30 grand.
Right.
It didn't cost 30 grand for a boring 59-second spot that leaves you wondering what they're actually pushing for.
I mean, did they spend, because I'm not there, I don't know. Did they spend the 30 grand on the ad, or are they going to spend that on running the ad? There's a big difference.
We don't know. There is no communication.
Okay. Yeah, because if they spent that on the ad, I think I'm outraged. If that 30 grand instead is to buy time in markets to run the ad, well, that's entirely different. So that's a question I think we need to ask.
Well, their goal was 100 grand for produce it and run it. And unfortunately, I do know they contracted a professional ad agency to produce the ad.
That was, if they paid for that, that's terrible. If there's anyone here who's on the LNC, if you could answer that question, if you guys are deciding to deign to answer member questions, because apparently lately you don't, how much did the ad cost to produce? That's what I want to know. Because, and maybe while you're at it, you could answer my ethics complaints that I filed now. What's the date? That kind of stuff you'd think the LP would deal with promptly. So the 13th, 6 weeks ago now.
Yeah, that'd be asking an awful lot for people to do their jobs. But
yeah.
And I'm going to admit, I wasn't the best at answering member emails when I was on the LNC. But the bulk of the member emails we got weren't things that needed a response. They just needed an acknowledgement. And the bulk of them,
and I responded to them all.
Yeah, Caryn Ann decided she wanted to spend her free time responding to everyone. I would forward things to the list with the response in generalized to the, okay, there were 70 emails about this topic. Here's my response to the topic.
Well, plus, I mean, not all of them were relevant to your region either. I mean, it's a little bit different when you're a regional. I was, I responded as an officer, so I do respond, unless they're really hateful. I respond to every email.
So Robert Daniel has another comment in chat. How about spending $300 to turn the LP website into something remotely adult-like?
Have you looked at it lately? I do think they've made a huge improvement in the site, and I'm pretty happy with it. I think Larissa did a really good job with the website. I give credit where it's due. I want to know how much they spent on that damn ad.
Yeah, I'd love to know how much they spent on the ad, and I will give the website a little bit of credit, Robert, because a few weeks ago, LPNH unveiled their new website. LPNH decided, after the whole kerfluffle and the fight with National over the keys to the website and keys to membership data, they decided they were going to leave the CRM project and host their own website, and went with a local web design firm for a lot less money than they were spending to host the website with National and sort of keeping things up, and got up a website that is more seamless. It's mobile optimized. It has a lot more features. It's set up for recurring donations. It has a membership. You can log in and actually adjust your membership levels and see your membership status and expiration dates. And it has your billing history and everything. Way more features than National ever had. And in the past few weeks, the National website has actually been incorporating some of the design features that LPNH went ahead and did. So
yeah, and they're working on accessing the member accounts. That's not. I know. We do need that, Robert Daniel. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But the website does look much better. I mean, I think Larissa has done a really good job with that.
Yeah, but I mean, is it a good enough job to outweigh a potential waste of $30,000 on an ad that doesn't actually communicate what you're opposed to?
Well, I want to find out how much they spent actually on the ad before I'm not a big fan of it. I'm a big fan of the fact that they did something. So I'm trying not to.
In order to push them to do something, it took you becoming a martyr.
Of course, I know.
and firing up the Mises base to the point where people were threatening to walk out on the party. We almost had a Dem walkout. I was seeing messages from Mises Caucus people who were in state party leadership in various states about mass disaffiliation, walking away, and just creating a new LNC. Taking the state parties and walking off. And that was something people were actively considering, because the LNC has been so watered down and garbage and not willing to actually stand for anything in the face of the biggest actual, legitimate, tangible threat to
but
human
they
freedom
managed to
in 100 years.
Get all lathered up about their secretary and actually do something there. I mean, their priorities are top notch. They managed to listen. I want something that people to understand here. Out of the entire LNC, forget about the regionals because that's a separate issue. Out of the LNC that's elected at convention, only 2 people were elected by a majority of the convention, me and Ken Mulman. All those other fuckers that voted to remove me, they didn't get 50%. Richard Longstreth, you didn't even get fucking 40%.
So
neither did Epke, none of them. And they all thought they had a bigger mandate to remove a duly elected officer. These people.
One of the silver linings, one of the upsides I hope we can move forward with the LNC with the LP in general with is out of COVID, out of the push and the force having an digital convention, and we saw that electronic voting can work and it can speed up the process over hand voting and be reliable and auditable. I don't think there is any excuse.
Last convention was not reliable or auditable at all. It was awful.
But it can be, and the technology exists.
It can be, but 2020 wasn't it.
Yeah. I don't think there's any excuse with the advent. I mean, we're the party of innovation. We shouldn't be stuck in the Stone Age when it comes to things. We should be the ones innovating and trying things out. There shouldn't be any excuse to not run out of time and not be able to complete elections and sit people who weren't elected through a complete runoff series with a majority vote.
I know.
And I look back at 2 terms ago, the JC had 2 members elected by majority, and there wasn't enough time for runoffs. And those 2 members sent a letter to the LNC and said, we will not be sitting anyone who did not receive a majority but ran. We're going to fill it with other people who are qualified to the vacancy.
Who got nothing.
Right.
Because they didn't run.
Right, but who weren't specifically disapproved of by the delegate.
See, but I don't think unless you had multiple rounds, you know who was disapproved of.
Right. But if we can't be having an election process that runs us up against a time clock,
right?
On
and
how
now
to elect
that you have people who couldn't even get 40% on the first round, removing someone who got a majority on the first round, I think we now really start to see the problem. All I can say is, Laura, Richard, Valerie, you got a lot of fucking nerve. But let me tell you. You couldn't even get 40%, and this bitch got a majority.
It's almost as bad as 2 people voting to remove 3.
Well, not that bad, but still, they got a lot of nerve.
Yeah. Fucking subtle shot at Delaware. That did be even when I thought it was above board and I thought they followed the rules. Even, I don't know if you saw, Dan did an interview with Will McVeigh the other day on his show. On the
I saw it.
Podcast.
Oof. Joe doesn't blink. Lizard. Is he a lizard? That's what I want to know. Watch. He doesn't blink. I looked. He blinks like once every 5 minutes.
I had some very mean things to say in the chat, and I went into that podcast expecting Dan to give Will a fair shake and to hear Will's side of the things. And when I started to hear Will's side of things, I'm like, all right, gloves off. There's no way I'm going to be fucking nice anymore.
It got worse. It got worse.
It just made it worse. At least in New Hampshire, Gilletta was able to defend herself. I didn't agree with her defense. I thought it was a huge overreaction. Will didn't even try and defend himself. He's like, no, what I did was shady as shit, but I did it.
Yeah.
It makes me think of okay, there's an old episode of Doctor Who, not an old episode. It was only 2 doctors ago, but they had an episode with a really strong anti-war arc, and the Doctor goes on a huge rant about how war never solves anything, and he just looks to the people about to start a nuclear holocaust, and he says, how are you going to protect your glorious revolution from the next one?
Well, Will's answer was, we found this loophole. Now we're going to pull the ladder up after us. That was his answer. Now we're going to fix it.
Right. And also, I know libertarians love Firefly and Serenity, myself included. I know every line to all 11 episodes and the movie by heart. But it's not geeking. It's a cult. It's not being a geek if it's a cult, Caryn Ann.
Okay. All right. I'll let you have that.
But in the Serenity movie, the agent of the state who was hunting down the rebels and hunting down Captain Reynolds and everyone, like Captain Reynolds asked him, is like, once you get your utopia, what are you going to do with the people like you? And that harkens back to this whole thing. What are you going to do with the people like you? If you think there's a problem in messaging, and if you think there's a problem in process, and you think there's a problem in your movement being co-opted, and if you try and fix that problem by engaging in base corruption and shady, underhanded tactics, how can you claim to represent a push for a movement of freedom and liberty in our lifetime if you embody everything that says that premise won't work? If you embody in your actions the corruption that keeps liberty failing, because liberty can only work if the people in power are responsible and respective and understand that they only govern with the consent of the governed. When you engage in this corruption and this base, debaucherous, scandalous, backroom dealing bullshit, you devalue everything about what you preach.
Yeah, but when you have the LNC modeling it, what do you expect? Really? I mean, it does flow down. But I need to make one correction. Tim also, because he was unopposed, technically got a majority, but of the contested races. Tim wasn't opposed. I always forget about Tim because he's so quiet, but I wanted to make sure I gave that correction. But yeah, when you have the LNC modeling it, what do you expect? The LNC is acting like a bunch of shady dealers. You know, Aaron Adams lies through her teeth in the middle of a board meeting. And I proved it. So anyone who thinks that I'm just shooting my mouth off, Mama always has receipts. And Mama showed the receipts for Richard Longstress, Lionass, Aaron Adams, and John Phillips.
Dan in the chat again. McVeigh Di Pasquale 2024, corruptly fighting corruption. What a slogan. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I saw Dan had posted this on Twitter. Mises Caucus member was elected to replace Will in his county chair position.
Who?
Will McVeigh, who organized his own rise from county chair to state chair in Delaware.
And he had to resign, right? He had to
was
resign
replaced by a Mises Caucus member immediately.
Who replaced him?
I don't remember. Dan had tweeted it out yesterday. I retweeted it because I thought it was fucking hilarious. But blew my mind. And the writing is on the wall, people. Reno's not that far away. Autodessing. Replaced Will.
So the regional alternate now. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. The writing is on the wall, people. I didn't join the Mises Caucus. Anybody can remember, I've been the loudest critic of the Mises Caucus from on high for the longest time. I didn't join the Mises Caucus until I was so fucking angry that I wanted a screenshot of the receipt to text to Joe Bishop Henchman before he blocked my number. Blowback is real.
I mean, listen, the funny thing is I should, in some way, like you said, I was a great secretary, but I'm an even better martyr. Each of the crap they pull, now I got my own radio show in Colorado. It's all the things that keep inuring, but I'd rather just have the position I was duly elected to. Thank you very much.
You'll get it back.
One way or another. And it won't be the Will McVeigh way. It'll be the legitimate way.
The question is, how much worse? What kind of squalls and issues could they bring? What could they do to try and prevent it in Reno?
Well, I don't know. There's nothing I don't have any skeletons or anything like that. I suppose I could nut up and snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory because people do that all the time in the party. But they could start to. I've always suspected that this LNC, and I brought this up a couple months ago, is going to try to manipulate the convention. Maybe use COVID restrictions. I don't know. But I had wanted them to pass a resolution that said, under no circumstances will we have this convention at a facility that will require proof of vaccination, because I don't know what the laws are going to be. Unlike the December LNC, oh, this is behind us, we have nothing to worry about. No, I think the worst is yet to come. And so I'm thinking ahead, because that's one way they can salt the soup. And they did my removal motion before they could hear that resolution. And no one else has brought it up. So I asked Joshua Smith or someone else, take that up. You don't need me to do it. You can do it. And get them to commit that we will move the convention. We will do something, but we will not have a convention that requires vaccine passports. Because if they do that, they've just thrown it in their favor, because these are petty little tyrants that want to keep their seats.
I think there's something to be said. It's worrying to bring stuff up to Josh. It's worrying to try and deputize Josh to go bring things forth now, because
Rich Bowen, then ask Rich Bowen to do
because
it.
like they've already tried to remove Josh. They've already openly talked about removing Josh. And
He's keeping his head down, and he should, because I mean, they are looking for his head. But Rich Bowen can move my resolution. If he needs the language, just write me any of them. Like anyone on the LNC, Dustin, any of you, Stephen, Nikayla, please, somebody move this resolution. It doesn't require me to do it. Let's get them on the record either, because let me let you know my strategy. If you move the motion, you'll get enough co-sponsors, because there's enough Mises people to co-sponsor it, and it fails, members can appeal that to the JC. So get it heard.
The question is whether or not the JC would take it seriously.
Who knows? But then, hey, listen, if they don't, then you know another group of people that got to go.
Yeah. So, hey, it's mind-blowing to see where we've come. Like, I miss the days when the biggest drama on the LNC was just me and you not being able to communicate over email effectively.
Yeah, but then you had Nick trying to pay himself $75 an hour, and me telling him I didn't believe in the labor theory of value, which was a very high point of an LNC meeting.
Yeah.
You know.
Now he's my neighbor, and he managed to put everyone on the payroll who just lackied up to him. So that's something I haven't gone into on what precipitated a lot of the LPNH drama, but a lot of the LPNH drama was precipitated when the state party vice chair ascended to becoming the chair, because the chair was scared of COVID and resigned because he didn't want to be around unvaccinated people. But then we had a state party chair who was on Nick Sarwark's payroll at the Libertarian Policy Institute, and who started using state party resources for his and Nick Sarwark's betterment in their personal campaigns and their personal projects, and
Who
ignored
else is on
all
the payroll
membership.
there? I know.
A member of the Massachusetts State Committee who lives in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Okay, so probably not anybody I know, though. I was just curious if it was anybody in my circle that's on the payroll.
I think the only person who might be in your circle who's like been connected to them is Tom Knapp was asked to write for them. And then
he's not in my circle anymore.
But at PorkFest, Tom told me he wrote some stuff, and then he tried to communicate, and Richard Manzo just never responded.
No. See, Tom and I are great when we're in person. I don't dislike him, but online, he's just a different person that I don't want to be around. But in person, he's wonderful. We saw each other at PorkFest and got along fine. But online, he's just a dick.
Funny story. The only words Nick Sarwark has spoken to me in almost a year at this point. No, it'll be a year after the election. He hasn't spoken to me since the election. Not 2 fucking words. The only word he has spoken to me was he walked up to me at PorkFest and said, "Justin, Tom Knapp is looking to see you," and walked away. So, that was it.
So I want to know how many more saplings have kicked his ass. That's what I want to know.
Hey, saplings are hard to cut down. Here's the thing. I'm gonna half defend Nick Sarwark here over that meme, because anybody you don't cut down. Saplings are very difficult to cut down in New Hampshire, because the evergreen saplings grow in a way that makes them very resilient. They fucking bend. But if you're such a smart fucking person that you portray yourself off to be, you know to saw down a sapling instead of
And you don't
fucking
wear
hacking at it.
flip-flops.
Well, I do, but I haven't worn shoes in 4 years. So. All right. It's been a real fun night. This has been a great conversation. Our hour is coming up. Caryn Ann, where can people follow you?
Pink Flame of Liberty. Pink Flame of Liberty is that's where I do all my rants lately. And of course Facebook and things like that, but I get banned quite on the regular. So Pink Flame of Liberty is where I am pretty much concentrating all of my efforts.
So that link will be in the description, but you can follow Caryn Ann on YouTube at the Pink Flame of Liberty channel. She goes live way more often than I do.
Every night almost.
Get in her chat, send her some super chats, and follow her on Twitter at Caryn Ann Harlos. You don't want to miss what she has to say. Until next time, everybody, though, it's been an awesome night. Be free. Thanks again for tuning in and joining us tonight. Make sure you hit that like button and leave a comment below to let us know your thoughts. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that big red subscribe button on YouTube and turn on notifications to get alerted every time we go live. If you enjoyed this content, you can join our production team on Patreon by following the link in the description. And don't forget to follow on social media and join our community Discord channel by following the links in the description as well. The best part of all of this is the community that we're building and growing. So go ahead and join us. And thanks once again to our awesome sponsors and patrons for making all of this possible. And if you can't catch the show live, you can always catch it the next day on YouTube, Odyssey, Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcasts. So until next time, everybody, be free.